This morning we'll be doing, I'll be leading a faculty meeting for a model classroom project where we have broken out into PLCs. We are working on a strand called the thinking strand of the different ways to get teachers to think about the questioning and how often they are questioning their students. So the focus of today's lesson is to really look at the effectiveness and the amount of time that they are questioning their students, the different strategies they are using when they question their students. I have created an agenda for the group members, and then I've also created a survey at the end. I'm going to be using the different techniques that we've learned with randomness and simultaneity in the lesson, and how to get the group to collaborate and work together and come up and have discussions to get some of their ideas out. So when we're looking at the different things, I'm going to make sure that we're using the time as effectively, trying to start on time as much as possible. I know that everyone gets there, they have a few minutes to chat for a second and then go ahead and get the meeting starting, and then making sure that we also end the meeting a few minutes before they need to be dismissed to welcome their kids. We're going to be working in groups and having discussions, so hopefully they will be collaborating and working together. There will be a couple other people with me presenting, and we're going to make sure that we are keeping the meeting flowing and that we are not just giving the information, but having them bring out the information and share their thoughts and their ideas, so it's more of a group effort. The content of what we're looking at is applying directly into their classroom, because we're asking them to think about how they're going about questioning some of their students, and eventually the different types of questions that they will be asking their students. But for right now, we're looking at just the number of times they question. If they're giving a mini lesson and it's 15 minutes long, we're asking them to be asking about 12 to 15 questions during that time frame, and not just questions where you're calling on one student, but questions where you're calling upon the whole class to respond by either a pair share or a quick write or some type of a visual cue for them to be able to tell their answers. And then so what we're going to do today is talk about the different strategies of how for them to just check themselves of how many times, or monitor themselves how many questions they did ask in a time period, so that students had a chance to be successful and answer questions. And so we're going to talk about different strategies, whether it's using popsicle sticks for them to just count the number, or rubber bands. Every time they ask a question, they move rubber band to one side to the next. There's also a strategy where just at the end of the class that you could ask the students, raise your hand if you got to answer a question or somehow participated in sharing your knowledge or something like that. So really just going through and talking about the amount of questionings that are going to happen in the classroom, and then in incorporating those other techniques that we've talked about within Model Classroom Project. They will be filling out a survey at the end of it, answering 5 questions. One on how did you think that your time was used today, and if the time was used effectively. They're asked to rate from a 1 to 5, 1 to being ineffective and 5 being extremely effective for each of the questions. And the second question says, how would you rate today's communication skills? That's with the people presenting the meeting. And again, they would circle 1 through 5. The third question is, how would you rate the leader's listening skills in today's meetings? Because again, today we wanted to make sure that we're not just doing all the talking, and that we are making sure that we're listening to their input and keeping that in mind, and making sure that it's not a one-way conversation. The fourth question says, how would you rate the use of the collaboration in today's meeting, and how many times they got to work together as a group, and if they felt like it was a group effort coming together to decide all the answers. And then the last question is, how would you rate today's content in regards to relevance into your classroom and how you would use it? Hopefully this will be a pretty strong one, because they chose this content. When we broke into the PLCs, or the professional learning communities, they were able to choose which community they wanted to improve on themselves, so that they could put back in the classroom. So hopefully that will be a pretty high one also. Another thing that we're having them do after we talked about the number of questions is for them to kind of set a goal that they think that they're going to monitor before we meet in 2 weeks again. that they've learned at least maybe 1 or 2 or 3 different times during that time period. How many did you want to try to get? Where was your first one? And what were the strategies and the skills that they were using to make sure that they got all of, that they're reaching their goal? And then also we're asking them to think about how can they share what we are learning with what they are learning and what they're trying through with other team members, because the group is only about 15 to 20 people. So we're trying to make sure that they are spreading this knowledge and this information with other team members or other members in the school. So the meeting should be pretty straightforward. We're just going to look at how effective I am at being able to lead it and making sure that it's relevant and time used wisely and everything else.